Story 1. When I consented to undertake the babysitting assignment for the Petersons at their rural residence situated near Nashville, Tennessee, I initially believed it would prove to be a straightforward undertaking. They possessed a single toddler, a delightful young girl named Lily, and a canine companion identified as Rufus, an exceptionally large and highly protective German shepherd with gentle brown eyes and a tail that rhythmically swayed much like a metronome. As an individual deeply affectionate towards animals, my anticipation of spending time with Rufus surpassed all other aspects of the job. The dwelling itself presented a rustic yet aesthetically pleasing appearance, enveloped by towering trees that appeared as though they were elements from a picturesque painting. The crisp autumnal air carried the scent of pine and moist fallen leaves, and the evening atmosphere was filled with the characteristic sounds of crickets. Mrs. Peterson provided me with a concise orientation, indicating the security system, the various rooms, and the established bedtime regimen for Lily. "Rufus will maintain a vigilant watch," she stated, gently ruffling his fur, adding, "He is an exceptional guard dog." I responded with a smile, stroking the area behind his ears, expressing, "I already feel more secure." Once the Petersons departed, the house settled into a comfortable stillness. Lily was an exemplary child, easily amused by her cherished stuffed bunny and bedtime narratives. By approximately 8:30 p.m., she was comfortably settled into her bed, softly snoring. I positioned myself on the sofa to watch a film, with Rufus resting at my feet. The living room was pleasantly warm, thanks to the crackling fire in the fireplace. Outside, the surrounding woods were plunged into profound darkness, the kind of impenetrable blackness one encounters exclusively in locations far removed from urban illumination. As I sipped my tea, Rufus abruptly became alert. His ears stood rigidly erect, and his body tensed. "What is it, boy?" I inquired. Rufus emitted a low growl, his gaze fixed intently on the sliding glass door that provided access to the backyard. I directed my attention in the same direction, but perceived nothing beyond the indistinct silhouettes of trees swaying gently in the breeze. "It's likely merely a raccoon," I murmured, speaking more to myself than to him. However, Rufus remained agitated. He continued to stay by the door, growling softly, his fur bristling. The initial hour elapsed without incident, yet Rufus maintained his state of heightened vigilance. Periodically, he would growl or emit sharp barks, his eyes darting towards the windows or the backyard. I wished to persuade myself that he was simply exercising excessive caution, but a growing knot of unease began to form within my stomach. Then, while I was inspecting the kitchen for a late-night refreshment, I observed something peculiar. The glass pane of the sliding door displayed smudges near its lower section, as though someone had pressed their hands against it. I halted my movement, leaning closer. The smudges were faint, yet undeniably present, and beneath the doorframe, in the exterior dirt, were faint footprints. These were too substantial to belong to a child. My throat constricted as I retreated from the door. "It's fine. Likely just someone passing through earlier," I reassured myself. But Rufus's continued growl communicated a different message. I secured the sliding door. Rufus closely accompanied me as I navigated through the house, ensuring that all doors and windows were properly secured. By the time I resettled myself, my nerves were frayed and my tea had grown cold. Just then, a soft knocking sound emanated. It did not originate from the front door. Instead, it came from the living room window. My heart leaped into my throat. I turned towards the source of the sound, my pulse throbbing in my ears. Rufus was already positioned at the window, barking ferociously, his teeth bared. His claws scraped against the wooden floor as he attempted to lunge towards the glass. I was unable to discern anything outside. The porch light only illuminated a small section of ground near the front steps. I retrieved my phone and dialed Mrs. Peterson's number, but the call went directly to voicemail. Next, I attempted to contact the police. The operator assured me that an officer would be dispatched to inspect the property, but they were at least 20 minutes away at best. "Great," I mumbled, looking at Rufus. "We are on our own." The knocking ceased, but a palpable tension permeated the house. Rufus steadfastly refused to depart from the window, his growls resonating like a premonition. I resolved to check on Lily, merely to confirm she remained asleep. I ascended the stairs as quietly as possible, peeking into her room. She was perfectly fine, nestled under her blankets with her bunny. However, as I turned to exit, I detected a flicker of movement through her window, originating from the backyard. I approached cautiously, keeping the lights off to avoid being observed. Near the tree line, a shadowy figure was discernible. It moved slowly, weaving between the trees before halting at the edge of the yard. The figure appeared tall and held something glinting in its hand. Possibly a flashlight, perhaps a knife. I could not ascertain. I hurried back downstairs, my mind racing. Rufus remained at the window, barking louder than ever. I knelt beside him, whispering, "Okay, buddy, what's the plan?" As if on cue, Rufus darted towards the back door, barking furiously. I followed, my heart pounding. Through the glass door, I saw the figure advancing towards the house. I seized the closest available object, a heavy wooden broom, and braced myself. Rufus was growling with such intensity that the sound reverberated throughout the kitchen. The figure stopped. His hood obscured any identifiable features. Rufus lunged at the door, barking so violently that it startled the intruder. He stumbled backward, his flashlight clattering to the ground. Moments later, the distinct sound of sirens pierced the night. Blue and red lights flashed through the windows as a patrol car entered the driveway. The intruder bolted towards the woods, vanishing into the darkness. I opened the door for the officers, my hands trembling. Rufus remained steadfastly by my side, his posture still indicative of protection. The officers thoroughly searched the property, but found no trace of the intruder. The only item they did locate was the flashlight that the intruder had dropped. Mrs. Peterson returned home shortly after the police departed. I recounted everything to her, from Rufus's initial warnings to the shadowy figure in the backyard. She embraced me tightly. "Rufus saved us," I affirmed, scratching his ears. He wagged his tail, his eyes now serene as the danger had passed. "I have always cherished animals, but Rufus transcended the role of a mere pet. He was a guardian, and I will forever be thankful for his instincts. Locks and alarm systems are indeed beneficial, but nothing can surpass the intuition and unwavering devotion of a loyal, four-legged companion." Story 2. "Emma possesses quite the talent for storytelling," Mrs. Hayes remarked, with a laugh, inspecting her diamond earrings in the hallway mirror. "Do not credit a single utterance she makes. She is merely undergoing a particular phase." Mr. Hayes concurred, jangling the car keys. "She is a good child, nonetheless, albeit with an overactive imagination. Attention-seeking, as the therapist defines it," he added. I forced a faint smile and adjusted the strap of my backpack. Their residence was strikingly impressive. Modern art adorned the immaculate walls, and the furnishings appeared utterly unused. It exuded that peculiar emptiness characteristic of excessive wealth. "We will be back before midnight," Mrs. Hayes promised, not quite meeting my gaze. "Numbers are located on the refrigerator." It was at this juncture that I observed her. 9-year-old Emma stood at the summit of the stairs, clad in a blue nightgown. Her perfect blonde hair and eyes, which held a mischievous quality, seemed too cunning for a child. "Hi, Emma. I'm Fiona," I greeted cheerfully. She did not reciprocate the smile. Instead, she merely stared, tilted her head slightly, and resumed her play. "Shy kid," I mused. However, the instant the front door closed, the child's demeanor underwent a complete transformation. "You should not have come, Fiona," she stated with a chillingly flat tone. I laughed awkwardly. "Well, I am present now. Would you care to guide me through the house?" "What is the utility?" she shrugged. "You will be deceased shortly anyway." I stared in astonishment as she glided down the stairs, humming as if she had merely commented on the weather. During the evening meal, Emma observed me from across the table, barely consuming her food. "So, what is your preferred academic subject in school?" I inquired, endeavoring to break the pervasive silence. "Psychology," she instantly responded. "I enjoy studying how minds fracture." I swallowed with difficulty. "That is quite mature for your age." "That is what the others expressed as well," she replied, pushing her peas around her plate. "Emma," I asserted firmly, "your parents mentioned you are fond of fabricating stories." "So are they," she retorted, "like how they invented being my biological parents." "Where are your kin then?" Her eyes darkened. Buried in the garden, I witnessed Daddy excavate the hole. My fork became motionless halfway to my mouth. "Just stories," I reminded myself. "Girls arrive to reside in our basement," she calmly continued. "I provide them with scraps when mother and daughter are slumbering." I forced a laugh. "Let us conclude dinner and perhaps view a Disney movie." "You do not credit me?" she inquired. "No one ever does, until it is too late." I did not believe her. until I observed the scars. Emma was brushing her teeth when her dress inadvertently slipped, revealing a complex network of thin, jagged scratches sneaking up her arms. "What transpired here?" I asked, genuinely concerned. She glanced down nonchalantly. "I performed it." "You deliberately harmed yourself?" "Why?" "To practice," she whispered. "When I inflicted upon you, my skin crawled." "Enough, Emma. That is not amusing." I swiftly completed her washing and guided her to her bedroom, opting to maintain silence. Just one night, I assured myself. I could endure the peculiar child a little longer. Little did I comprehend it would extend far beyond that period. As I tucked Emma into bed, my hand made contact with something concealed beneath her pillow, a journal. I immediately seized it and hastily perused the pages. My blood ran cold. The pages were replete with disturbing illustrations, stick figures brandishing knives, and splashes of red crayon smeared across every surface. But one particular page arrested my attention. A crudely drawn caricature of myself, my head severed, with red crayon dripping from the neck. I did not waste a single second. My mind raced with numerous inquiries. Could the child be in jeopardy? Were the haze concealing something sinister? The basement door seemed to beckon me. It was locked. I hesitated for a moment, then retrieved a bobby pin. With trembling hands, I successfully manipulated the lock. The basement presented as finished, but was oddly sparse. As my vision adjusted to the dimness, I detected a section of carpet that appeared newer than the surrounding area. Beneath a workbench, I discovered a small container holding identification cards and credit cards belonging to various women, alongside a missing persons flyer displaying the photograph of a young woman, a babysitter who had vanished 3 months prior. My heart pounded as I retrieved my phone. No signal. Suddenly, I perceived a presence directly behind me. Emma stood in the doorway, holding a butcher's knife in her hand. "I informed you," she snickered. "No one ever heeds." I pushed past her, sprinting upstairs. I needed to escape, to contact someone. The front door would not yield. "Cease running," Emma instructed, slowly following me. "You will find yourself in a pleasant place. My parents will ensure that outcome." I rushed to the kitchen, seizing the landline telephone. It was dead. "They disconnect it when they depart," Emma explained, swinging the butcher knife. "We trap someone disposable. See what transpires?" My voice fractured precisely then. I heard a vehicle pull into the driveway. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes had returned. "Me, Daddy, and Mommy," Emma whispered. I commenced with Mom and Dad. Daddy did not impede me. He stated we had to safeguard the family name, the estate. Heavy footsteps drew nearer to the porch. They delight in viewing the videos afterward, Emma continued, her eyes darting to a minuscule camera positioned within the smoke detector, to observe the duration the babysitter endures. I heard the main door open. Emma, you require assistance. Your parents are erroneous, I demanded. You should conceal yourself. That is what the preceding individual did, she responded. She lasted almost an hour. I fled towards the bathroom, locking the fragile door. I could hear Emma outside giggling. She is within, Daddy. Go acquire her. The door handle rattled. I ascended into the small window, forcing my body through the opening. I tumbled onto the lawn and sprinted towards the road, blood soaking my sleeve. The final sight I registered before hailing a taxi was the haze porch light illuminating and two silhouettes stepping out onto the porch. I made an anonymous 911 call to report the haze after that night. I continue to harbor hope of witnessing their arrest publicized in the news, but deep within, I possess this pervasive feeling: individuals with substantial wealth can evade accountability for virtually anything. Story 3. We were first-time parents, situated in an unfamiliar setting, experiencing constant sleep deprivation and lacking any familial support. Our infant daughter, Lily, cried throughout every night. I had not consumed a hot meal in 2 weeks. The dwelling permeated with the odor of old formula and an overwhelming sense of desperation. And then, precisely like an angel dispatched directly from our profound distress, someone deposited a flyer on our doorstep. It advertised an experienced babysitter, CPR certified, excellent references. Call Eliza. It genuinely felt as though our universe had decided to intervene and finally provide us with assistance. Eliza was impeccable, refined, composed. Her voice possessed a silky quality. Her attire was smooth, and her smile was soft, but entirely devoid of warmth. The instant she made contact with Lily, the crying ceased. I wept in the shower, out of sheer relief. Even after her initial babysitting session with Lily, I managed to sleep for 4 consecutive hours. It felt like a profound awakening. However, circumstances began to alter rapidly. I would discover Lily's toys in strangely displaced locations. Sometimes, they were meticulously arranged in small circles or peculiar patterns, akin to a seance. They were consistently positioned to face the window, and Eliza would inexplicably arrive early, often prior to me even requesting her assistance. I simply had a premonition you required me, she would declare each time she entered, as if she were the primary caretaker and I merely the child. The baby monitor would spontaneously crackle to life, even when it was deactivated, and on occasion, it would broadcast lullabies I did not recognize, ancient, unusual songs that caused Lily to whimper rather than sleep. I confronted Eliza on one particular instance. "What was that melody you were singing a short while ago?" I inquired. "Oh, something distinctive for little Lily," she responded, smiling in a disconcerting manner. That particular smile lingered in my memory. One morning, I feigned illness and remained at home. From behind the slightly ajar nursery door, I overheard her whispering to Lily in a language I could not comprehend. Then in English, she articulated, "They never desired you, but I do." A chilling sensation akin to ice sliding down my spine enveloped me. Nate informed me I was paranoid, suffering from a degree of sleep deprivation. "She has been wonderful with Lily," he asserted. "What was that melody you were singing a short while ago?" I inquired. "Oh, something distinctive for little Lily," she responded, smiling in a disconcerting manner. That particular smile lingered in my memory. One morning, I feigned illness and remained at home. From behind the slightly ajar nursery door, I overheard her whispering to Lily in a language I could not comprehend. Then, in English, she articulated, "They never desired you, but I do." A chilling sensation, akin to ice sliding down my spine, enveloped me. Nate informed me I was paranoid, suffering from a degree of sleep deprivation. "She has been wonderful with Lily," he asserted. At night, I conducted a reverse search for Eliza's phone number. Nothing emerged. No full name, no background information, no social media profiles. It was a burner phone. I telephoned the references listed on the flyer. Every single one was disconnected. I should have dismissed her, but I desperately needed concrete evidence, so I acquired a nanny cam. The subsequent recording continues to haunt my nightmares. At 3:04 in the morning, Eliza is captured in Lily's room, holding her in her arms directly in front of the mirror and speaking into it. She is nearly prepared. "We merely need to eliminate the mother," she stated. I forgot how to swallow. I feigned sleep that night. When Eliza arrived, I quietly arose to observe her tiptoe into the nursery and close the door behind her. Barefoot and overwhelmed with terror, I stealthily pursued her, my heart pounding. I peered through the old heating grate in the wall. Eliza was kneeling adjacent to the crib. I watched as she opened something located beneath the crib, a hidden compartment I had never previously known existed. Inside were photographs of me while I was sleeping, showering, and holding Lily at the hospital. She had been observing us long before the flyer was distributed. I felt dizzy and retreated. The following morning, I recounted to Nate what I had witnessed. We awaited Eliza's arrival. She entered, smiling as though nothing was amiss. I confronted her. "Who are you? What do you desire with my daughter?" Her smile remained unchanged. "You do not recall me, do you? I was present in the maternity ward. I was destined to depart with Lily, but they assigned her to you. I am here to reclaim what is rightfully mine." Everything froze. The room seemed to shrink in dimensions. Then she lunged for Lily, but Nate intervened, jumping on her. Together, we secured her to our living room chair and dialed 911. If this were some horror film, Eliza would have unleashed a full psycho mode. However, you would not believe how distinctly different it was in reality. It was as if she suddenly acknowledged the situation and surrendered too quickly. as if something within her simply fractured, and she ceased maintaining the facade she had worn for so long. It was as if she herself was fatigued. Even when the police arrived, Eliza cooperated like an ordinary, harmless civilian. But she continued to hum that lullaby as they applied handcuffs to her. Her fingerprints revealed the remainder of her narrative. Eliza Montgomery, a former NICU nurse, had lost custody of her infant daughter years prior after experiencing a severe mental health breakdown. Her daughter subsequently perished in a fire at a foster home. Since that time, she had been targeting new mothers within our vicinity, offering babysitting services and distributing flyers. 3 babies had gone missing prior to Lily's potential disappearance. 3 families had been utterly devastated. We were almost number 4. I do not wish to comprehend what Eliza did with those missing infants, or if they are even still alive. She had already provided sufficient nightmare fuel for my entire lifetime. Occasionally, I reflect upon how narrowly we escaped losing everything. I still meticulously inspect beneath the crib. I still unplug the baby monitor before retiring each night. And sometimes, even now, when Lily is alone in her room, I believe I can still discern that lullaby. Yet, when I open the door, no one is there. Just Lily, smiling at her reflection in the mirror. Story 4. I had consistently exhibited a natural aptitude with children, which was likely the primary reason I initially aspired to become a teacher. Consequently, when my mother's friend, Mrs. Kelly, inquired if I could babysit her 5-year-old son, Charlie, on a tranquil spring evening in 2018, I assented without any hesitation. In a charming town situated in upstate New York, their dwelling presented a perfect embodiment of coziness, the type of place that enveloped you like a warm embrace. I approached the task, anticipating it would be exceptionally effortless. I could not have been more mistaken. Charlie was a quiet child, but not in a shy manner. Rather, it was as if he was profoundly immersed in his own distinct world. Upon my arrival, he was seated cross-legged on the living room rug, meticulously arranging toy cars into a perfectly aligned row. Mrs. Kelly provided me with the customary briefing. Bedtime was established for 8:30 p.m. Snacks were located in the refrigerator, and emergency contact numbers were affixed to the refrigerator door. Simple enough. Charlie has recently been discussing his friend, she added with a chuckle. Just so you are aware, it is probably some imaginary companion. He is exceptionally creative. That was perfectly acceptable. Imaginary friends were entirely normal for children of his age. If anything, it sounded endearing. After Mrs. Kelly departed, I endeavored to initiate a conversation with Charlie, but he proved to be largely unresponsive. He answered my inquiries with single words or nods, his focus never deviating from his toys. Eventually, I desisted and settled onto the couch with a book. The house was peaceful, with the faint chirping of birds audible from outside and the golden light of sunset streaming through the windows. It was not until Charlie began whispering to himself that my attention was drawn. Initially, I presumed he was humming or murmuring unintelligible sounds, but then I managed to discern a few distinct words. "Yes, Grandpa, I will show her." "To whom are you speaking, Bud?" I inquired, setting down my book. He looked up at me with a serious expression. "Grandpa." "Oh," I responded, smiling. "Is Grandpa your friend?" Charlie shook his head. "He's my real grandpa. He comes to visit." This statement caused me to pause. I was sufficiently acquainted with the Kellys to know that Charlie's grandparents were no longer living. They had passed away years ago. Perhaps he had overheard stories about them and constructed this imaginary version within his mind. "What is Grandpa like?" I asked, genuinely curious. "He stands by the tree in the backyard," Charlie stated matter-of-factly. "He has a watch that goes tick, 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 and he rocks in his chair." The manner in which he described it was so remarkably specific, so vividly detailed, that it sent a minute shiver of unease through me. I gazed towards the backyard, but all I perceived were the bare branches of the large tree swaying gently in the breeze. As the evening progressed, I was unable to dispel the peculiar sensation Charlie's words had imparted. He was not the type of child to invent elaborate narratives, and the specifics concerning the watch and the rocking chair felt strangely personal. After dinner, we engaged in playing with blocks in the living room. Charlie consistently glanced towards the sliding glass doors that led to the backyard. I asked him if he wished to play outdoors, but he promptly shook his head. "He does not approve when I venture out there," he murmured softly. "Who does not?" I inquired, despite already knowing the answer. "Grandpa." I attempted to keep the conversation light, but the somber tone in Charlie's voice caused my chest to tighten. "Why does he not approve?" Charlie shrugged. "He says it is not safe." By the time I tucked Charlie into bed, the disquiet had firmly settled within my gut. The house was steeped in silence, the kind of silence that presses against one's ears. I remained in the living room, aimlessly scrolling through my phone and trying to avoid dwelling too much on Charlie's grandpa. But then I heard a soft creak, similar to wood groaning under pressure. My eyes instantly fixated on the sliding glass doors. For a brief moment, I believed I saw a shadow near the tree, but when I blinked, it had vanished. I convinced myself it was merely the wind. After all, it was spring. Branches swayed, shadows moved. There was nothing out there. Still, I locked the door purely for reassurance. As I was tidying up the toys, I noticed something peculiar on the mantel above the fireplace. An old picture frame. I could not resist my curiosity, so I reached out and picked it up. It was an old black and white photograph of a man seated in a rocking chair beneath a tree. His face conveyed kindness, but was weathered, and on his wrist was a watch with a large round face. I quickly placed the frame back down, my pulse quickening. That had to be Charlie's grandfather. But how could Charlie describe him with such perfect accuracy? He had never met him, had he? Had he seen this photograph before? Perhaps Mrs. Kelly had recounted stories about her father, but even that did not adequately explain the eerie precision of Charlie's descriptions. Later that evening, as I lay on the couch with a blanket draped over me, I heard something that caused the hairs on my arms to stand erect. The sound of a child's voice. "Grandpa, why are you sad?" My heart leaped as I sat up, attempting to listen intently. The voice emanated from Charlie's room. I seized my phone and tiptoed down the hall, the floorboards creaking softly beneath my feet. I paused outside his door. "I miss you too," Charlie stated softly. "But she doesn't believe me." I pushed the door open. Charlie was sitting upright in bed. He looked at me, startled. "To whom are you speaking?" I inquired. "Grandpa," he whispered. "There's no one here, Charlie," I stated gently. "It is just us." He pointed towards the window. He was standing right there. The following morning, Mrs. Kelly returned, her cheerful demeanor feeling entirely incongruous after my unsettling night. As I assisted her in carrying groceries inside, I took a moment to compose myself before asking, "May I inquire something about Charlie?" "Of course," she responded, unloading a bag of apples onto the counter. "He has been speaking about his grandpa. He says he sees him by the tree in the backyard. Is that normal?" Mrs. Kelly froze, her smile fading. "What do you mean?" I recounted everything. Charlie's descriptions, the conversations, the picture on the mantel. Her face grew pale as I spoke. "My father passed away a few weeks ago," she stated quietly. "Charlie does not know that. We did not wish to distress him." A shiver coursed through me. "But he described him perfectly. The watch, the rocking chair." Mrs. Kelly nodded, her hands trembling as she gripped the counter. "Those were my father's favorite things. He used to sit under that tree for hours, just rocking and tinkering with that old watch." I was at a loss for words. Was Charlie truly perceiving his grandfather's spirit? Or was it merely his way of processing grief, even if he was unaware of the complete story? As I drove home, I could not cease pondering the man in the photograph and the manner in which Charlie had spoken to the seemingly empty air with such conviction. I had always regarded myself as a rational individual, but that night had compelled me to question everything. Even now, when I contemplate that cozy little house and a tree in the backyard, I wonder, was Charlie merely a creative child with an active imagination? Or was there something or someone watching over him, attempting to establish a connection one final time? Whatever the truth, I comprehended that some phenomena transcend rational explanation, and sometimes one does not require full understanding to acknowledge their reality. Story 5. The Carter's Residence presented the kind of architectural marvel one might encounter in an upscale magazine, characterized by glass walls and sharp angles. It was positioned atop a hill, seemingly observing the rest of the world below. While undeniably beautiful, it felt cold and devoid of warmth, the sort of dwelling where one might feel like a specter even while living. I accepted the employment opportunity out of sheer necessity. Tuition fees were due, and my financial account was severely depleted. When they proposed 3 times my customary rate, I refrained from posing any questions. I should have inquired further. Ethan has already been fed and bathed, Mrs. Carter stated, her diamond earrings catching the light as she casually tossed her purse over her shoulder. Her smile did not quite extend to her eyes. We will be back by midnight. And then they were gone, leaving me solitary within that glass edifice with their 8-year-old son. Ethan was remarkably quiet for a child of his age. He did not object when I informed him it was bedtime. He simply ascended into bed, pulled the covers up to his chin, and stared at me with those large, unblinking eyes. "He always comes when they leave," he whispered as I reached for the light. "He likes girls like you." I froze. "Cool," I responded. Regardless of how much I prodded, Ethan offered no further answers. Instead, he merely lay there, closing his eyes. Feeling somewhat anxious, I returned to the living room and attempted to concentrate on my textbook. But every creaking sound from the house caused me to start. Precisely at 9 p.m., the doorbell chimed. My heart pounded against my ribs. On the security monitor, a man was visible at the door, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with perfectly styled hair, smiling directly into the camera as if he knew I was observing. "Hi, Lisa," he stated when I pressed the intercom. His voice possessed a smooth, excessively smooth quality. "I'm Daniel, Ethan's uncle. I've already informed Rachel. We merely need to retrieve some files from the study and then depart." My stomach churned. I had not been notified that anyone would be arriving. "Call her if you wish," he suggested, still smiling. "She will assure you it is acceptable." I complied. Mrs. Carter answered on the second ring. "Oh, Daniel, he's family. It's fine," she articulated with a forced laugh, her voice strained. I opened the door, acting against my screaming instincts. Daniel was taller than I had anticipated. "Thank you," he stated as he brushed past me, his arm grazing mine. "This will not take long." But it did. Minutes extended into an eternity. When I finally went to check on him, he was seated in the study, not actively engaged in anything, simply staring. "Have you located everything you require?" I inquired, my voice trembling. Daniel slowly stood up, stalking closer. "That is a delightful scent you are wearing," he sniffed, grinning. "Reminds me of someone." My blood ran cold. "You must be a student," he remarked, taking a step closer. "College is expensive, is it not?" I nodded, backing away. He reached into his jacket and extracted a thick wad of cash, tossing it onto the desk. $15,000, he stated, licking his lips. "All for a night with me." I found myself unable to breathe. "I believe you should leave." "Do not be difficult," he countered, stepping closer. "We both acknowledge your need for the funds. Depart, or I will summon the police," I declared, reaching for my phone. His hand shot out, seizing my wrist with crushing force. "No, you will not," he hissed. I attempted to yank my arm back and screamed, but his grip tightened. Scream all you desire, Lisa. No one is coming. They never do. You are mine. I did not think I could. I drove my knee upward with considerable force, aiming for anything, and bolted. The front door would not yield. The security panel blinked red. Wrong code. Behind me, Daniel laughed, a low, terrifying sound. I ran to the kitchen, yanking open drawers until I located a knife. His footsteps were slow, deliberate, as if he were savoring the pursuit. 7 girls before you, he boasted. None of them were missed for days. I pointed the knife at him, my hand trembling. Stay back, he smiled, stalking forward. The last one possessed dark hair, too. I threw the knife, not with intent to kill, but merely to create a distraction, and bolted up the stairs. Ethan's room was empty. Ethan, I cried, terrified. A small hand grasped mine from within the closet. Ethan's eyes were wide, his voice barely audible. He always performs that, he whispered. He comes when they leave. Heavy footsteps echoed on the stairs. Daniel's voice followed, singing and mocking. I can smell your fear, little girl. I seized the landline telephone positioned by Ethan's bed, my fingers fumbling as I dialed 911. The dispatcher spoke from the other end, but before I could respond, Daniel burst into the room, blood dripping from his shoulder, from where the knife had grazed him. In his hand, he held a zip tie. You stupid, stupid girl, he growled, lunging for me. A struggle ensued as he leaped onto me. We both tumbled out of the room, moving towards the stairs. I continued punching and kicking him, but he possessed superior strength. He dragged me down the remainder of the stairs and pinned me onto the hard floor. Just when I believed it was all over for me, I heard the distinct sound of police cars. Daniel stopped, and I observed the color drain from his face. Who the hell called the police? He screamed, a mixture of pain and anger in his voice. I did. I detest you, and I detest Mommy and Daddy too. I saw Ethan standing on the stairs. He was crying, but when the police dragged Daniel away, he continued yelling that he would secure bail in no time. 6 missing babysitters over 3 years. The Carters were apprehended as accomplices. Little Ethan was subsequently assigned to foster care, while Daniel received a sentence of life imprisonment. However, the true justice was served when he was discovered unconscious in his cell a week into his sentence, suffering from a brain hemorrhage due to an undetected injury. He survived, but doctors predict he will never regain the ability to walk. I visit Ethan periodically. He still does not comprehend that he ultimately saved my life. One day, as he matures, I am certain he will feel a profound sense of pride in himself.